So, welcome. Here's a set of my characters, and go above the meta level of this. This is my meta build. Only issue I have with stamina, it does come in handy sometimes to have just a little bit more stamina whenever you, and then a lot of times after you finish with casting, you run out and then you can't roll away. But yeah, these are my builds. My builds range from 120 to 140. I don't really go above those caps because, like I said, Dark Souls community, like anything that's over level 120, you kind of catch a fit by. So I just try to stay within that range. So here's my main build. As you could probably tell, 140. It's pretty much a caster. This one is an all-round build. Like, it has pretty much everything around the 30. It's not a quality build, because quality builds are normally 40/40s, like 40 dex, 40 strength, that so forth. And this is a build that I've been working on for quite some time. And that one, it's just that this one is more of a pyromancer than anything. So I'm just going to start the game with I'm just going to start the game with my main build. Okay. That happens sometimes. Okay, so this is not really anywhere near the high amount of AR that I normally use and have, but if you look to your left and you can see some of my stats, everything is pretty even. This is a mage build, so it's gonna have 50/40. So I'm just going to start off with normally most people do not use Crystal Chime because it doesn't have the poise effect. The thing that the Crystal Chime does have at its advantage is that it can cast both miracles and sorceries. So this is pretty much what you want if you're gonna be a true actual mage that uses both sorceries and miracles at the same time. And whenever you're a true mage and you use both sorceries and miracles, I would recommend the best class to have is to use Pyromancer, because Pyromancer goes off of both intelligence and faith. So yeah, I know my AR could be a lot higher if I were to take off some stats and redo some things. Mainly, this is not really for PvP, this is mainly for PvE. So here are the weapons that I normally use. I normally use these because they're pretty good when it comes to range and good damage. And they're straight swords. Straight swords are a commodity within Dark Souls because, let's say, you just get a shield and a straight sword, and that's pretty much how you play Dark Souls. I mean, there's not much to it. All you gotta do is play with that style and just 1, 2, 3, turtle, 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 turtle. Yeah. In fact, a regular sword, a regular shield, and a straight sword is probably one of the most annoying builds to fight, especially if it's a quality build. I'm not so sure about mage builds in general when it comes to the spell sword type thing, but I know for a fact that having a quality build and using just a regular old shield and a straight sword is pretty much very overpowering because of how fast straight swords have on their attack patterns. Now, I do recommend for straight swords, I recommend the Lothric Knight Sword as one of the most viable straight swords in the game because of this. This is pretty much like a shield splitter type move, because as soon as you parry, it's not really a parry, it's just boom, and then it staggers them, and then you can just go straight in for the critical hit, which is a riposte. So, and you're looking at, let's say, yeah, and the critical is normally 110. I can just add the Hornet Ring. Yeah, and it boosts critical attack. So my attack, from what I remember, it will boost it up to 15, so that'd be 130, 120, whatever, give or take. And this is like for your spears or rapiers. So if you just add the Hornet Ring and the Leo Ring to like any rapier you have in the game, aka S-Stock, or what's the other one? There's this one, there's S-Stock, there's Crystal Sage's rapier, and then there's the Crowquill's. These weapons are fun to use because it has a decent weapon art. I mean, it's just a jump attack that throws like little kunai, and then that's the weapon art. You can do what most people do when they have a parrying weapon. They normally just grab a Caestus on the side. Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Just boom and then boom. And that's pretty much a one-shot kill, depending on all the damage calculations and modifiers on the critical hit, because the Crow Quills automatically have 120 critical hit ratio, and stacking the Hornet Ring and Leo Ring on it makes it even more ridiculous. S-Stock is pretty much the same, but it just has a higher damage output. Rapier, most people don't use these ones. I mean, yeah, this one is another good one that I'd recommend, that I don't really see a lot in PvP, because it has the shield splitter. And I do not believe that move can be parried. Most thrust weapons are really easy to parry, so I would just, but they do a lot of damage. For me, I recommend curved swords, predominantly the Carthage curved. I mean, it was the meta for a while in the Dark Souls series, and it kind of still is. It's just one of those things. It's just really quick. Has a good, decent weapon art, and it has balance. So you're pretty much getting a lot out of this weapon. Like, this weapon is, don't get me wrong, they did nerf it, though it still has its features. Another good dex weapon. Okay, this is probably one of the most solid weapons in the game, especially for people who like to use quality or dex builds. Mainly, I recommend this for dex of all ultra great swords, and it has a really good weapon art when it comes to people just, like, look at that. Like, it has a follow-up. And I recommend, every time when you're using an ultra great sword, always two-handed. Always two-hand your ultra great swords, because when you're going up against parry kings and stuff like that, they will parry your shit. Like, bam, oh, they'll parry you. Right, just right from that, a startup will get you parried. In fact, that's enough time to give someone to go behind you and backstab you. Like, just from this startup attack, bam, someone could just roll right there, unless you're really up close. Now, when you're two-handing it, it's a different thing. It does more damage, and they can't parry. Most ultra great swords have their little blocking feature, but this is like the equivalent of blocking with a great shield, except for you'll take damage. I don't recommend blocking this way, but if you have to, because it does come in handy sometimes, it just doesn't come in handy when you're fighting against a mage who's using Crystal Soul Spear. Like, that will kill you no matter what. And yeah, this one has okay, iffy AR because of my build. Because Dark goes for both intelligence and faith, so it's pretty much it's a solid weapon all the way around. So I recommend the Stora's Great Sword. to anybody who starts playing the game and you find it. It's a really fucking good weapon. You cheese the fuck out of people with it. Another good weapon is this one. This is a standard great sword. Standard great swords are pretty much the same. Work similar to ultra great swords, except for they're a little bit quicker. They have a little bit more. They have less invincibility frames, and they have less poise than the ultra great swords. Now I talk about poise whenever poise is pretty much non-existent in this game to a certain degree. It's mainly hyper armor that plays the most part. And that's usually what it's going to come down to, is your overall hyper armor. Now this is one of my okay, the Onyx Blade and the Drakeblood Greatsword are my two favorite greatswords besides Wolnir's greatsword, and here's why. I know there's a Moonlight Greatsword, but the reason why these are my two favorite is because, okay, yeah, they have split damage. Yeah, they do have split damage, and a lot of people don't like split damage because it doesn't scale well with your overall AR quite well whenever you're attacking somebody. So yeah, this is a really strong weapon, especially when two-handing it. Two-handing great swords is recommended always. And the stance for it, yeah, this stance is really hard to break. It's really quick, strong, and effective. But I would only recommend this for people who are, like I said, like mage builds with a little bit of sword play. Let's go into this sword. Okay, this sword is not as popular in PvP like it used to be at the beginning, mainly because it's a straight sword. But it has a really good combo. The only problem with that combo thing is that they gave it a little bit more time in between to get attacked before you actually activate the weapon art. So you have to be standing back a good distance before you attack your opponent with this, because here's why. Yeah, it has really good range, and the running attack says it all. So what do I normally run whenever I actually play? Notice how I said play. When I just use a whole bunch of different shit. This weapon is solid. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a good strength. It's a good strength and faith weapon. That's all I can tell you about Wolnir's Holy Sword. And I used to combo this with the Immolation Tinder, because Immolation Tinder is within the meta. Now these swords, yeah, these are the twin swords. They were really popular and overpowered at the very beginning of the Ring City DLC. And regardless of how they were nerfed, these things are still really annoying, and yeah, they're still overpowered because it's dual wielding great swords. And to me, it has a very, very messed up attack pattern. Simply because your startup, it starts with that, and you can't be interrupted during that attack. Like, that attack has so much hyper armor that most people that are trying to using straight swords or trying to turtle behind, yeah, that's not gonna work with that. But that weapon doesn't fit with my build. I like to use smaller weapons such as daggers, knives, straight swords. Okay, I know what people are gonna think. The dark sword, this is the dark cancer sword along with the curved sword, because this is a straight sword that acts like a great sword. Like, it has a great sword stance, such as the one attack that usually is made to knocking people up. It has that up on a straight sword. And the attack pattern is kind of crazy, and it does crazy damage. Like this attack pattern right here, the R1, R2, R1, R2 is broken. Because by the minute you hit someone, it pretty much puts them into an animation of them being hit. So you do that. If they try to block, you'll catch them, and then if they try to move again, then you'll strike them. Then you'll catch them again, and then it's just a loop. I've never seen someone try to attempt that one. That one's hard to pull off. The R2, R2, R1 is hard to pull off due to most people can roll out of the way, and it's made for roll catching. So boom, boom, roll catch. Alright. The Ithral Straight Sword, this is made really good for going up against bosses, simply because I'm not sure if people know this or not, or if it's just a thing, or if it's just me, but a lot of times when I fight bosses with this weapon, since it has frost damage, I believe it drains stamina a lot quicker, and it kind of wears down the bosses or enemies that you fight and people in general. So that's another thing to take into account with the frost weapons. I think I've covered a little bit about more so likely my build than builds in general. So for builds, what I mean by quality builds and what I mean by soul level is the proper soul level for Dark Souls for the community, that is, because everybody gripes about it, is 120. That's the meta. I don't know why it's been like that. I used to know why whenever I played Dark Souls 1 and 2. I mean, Demon Souls, people didn't really care about that as much, but in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 2, they really cared about, you know, soul level when it came to PvP, because mainly a lot of people abused that system in Dark Souls 1. So, well, not in Dark Souls 1, but in Dark Souls 2. So as you can see, my vigor is 30, my attunement is 25, my endurance is 25, my vitality is 12, my strength is 18, my dexterity is 23, and I believe my dexterity is 23 because I have the hunter's ring on. The reason why I have the hunter's ring is because a lot of times I use this combo. This is pretty much a deal breaker. And that's like without no magic. I probably could kill the Firekeeper with just that alone. Close enough. But it does it does a shit ton of damage anyway. And I have no rings on, by the way, none, except for the Pyromancy ring. And then this is even more. So this is my combo that I mainly use because I have a power of a halberd for roll catching, and then I have a spear for just long range pokes. And then a lot of times when people try to move in close to me, I'll either halberd, poke, or then just fair arm flash to keep people off of me. Now I came up with this whenever I was experimenting. I was like, I'm a mage. What would be a good combination of a mage and a faith weapon build? So I kept exploring. It started off like this. It started off with me using, what's the faith weapon that I like to use a lot? Oh yeah, it started off with me using the Sunlight Straight Sword because that's one of my favorite weapons in the game. I know it's not upgraded much. This is I haven't really done much. A lot of the weapons and things that I have that are fully upgraded, I kind of like gave away, and now I'm just stuck with my scraps that I had to get back from my my new playthrough. But anyhow, it started off with just that, and instead of the crystal chime, I used the cleric's candlestick because I like using double straight swords. So I would just activate this. I use my miracles to boost my sorceries, which is something that people don't really like. They don't really like buffing because buffing first of all takes a little long, and by the time you finish buffing, a lot of people will not let you buff. They won't sit there and watch you be like, oh, I'm just gonna stack Deep Protection, Oath of Sunlight, and then Carthage Beacon on top of everything. They're not gonna sit there and let you do all that shit. So you just gotta be fast at it. So I would say start the match with a quick buff, and then just Crystal Soul Spear, because that's most likely going to kill somebody with great precision. So I'm gonna go out here and kill some shit. Now, I'm doing this video because I have future videos that are coming up for Dark Souls. Mainly build videos, builds about the Dark Souls community and things. And because Code Vein is coming out really soon, I'm really excited for that one. To me, that's going to be a really interesting title. It's not really a Soul title, but it's a Souls-like game. So I'm just gonna have that up on my full radar because I'm gonna be all over that game, like right on rice. I'm gonna go ape shit without the shit. Yeah, you see that shit? It's cancer. Oh fuck. I hate fighting those guys. Sometimes they'll fucking kill you. This is a fairly good, decent combo and setup. I know there's a better setup than this one with the Sellsword Twin Blades or the Warden Twin Blades. To be honest with you, the Sellsword Twin Blades have more damage than the Warden Twin Blades, but the Warden Twin Blades have the bleed damage advantage. And since I like the bleed damage, I'm just gonna go with the latter and choose the Warden Twin Blades over the Sellsword. I know that's unusual because most people like Sellswords and any other buff or any other weapon, because Sellswords is GG. In fact, starting the game with the Sellswords is pretty much the fastest way to beat the game. If you're going for speed runs, just choose the Sellsword and then just go to town, because okay, so I've showed you most of what casters do. Casters mainly Crystal Soul Spear, Coleman Crystal Soul Mass, or Farron Flash Sword. Normally you don't see these other spells in there like Farron Hail or Soul Great Sword, or what is that? Pestilent Mist is good for certain bosses. Or you see the dark build people. And that's and these are all your miracles. This one's actually interesting. I recommend Sunlight Talisman or Sunless Talisman. I use Sunless Talisman because of it has the spell buff advantage, especially with intelligence. But to me the best ones to use is either Talisman or the Sunlight Talisman. There's other talismans in the game, like the one from Freed. That's another good one. I think that's probably the best one overall, since it has a buff. And then there's the other one. Where's my Ring of the Sun's Firstborn? There it is. Now this spell is good for Dead Again. It's like a landmine type spell. What you can do is the dead bodies, they will create like explosions and they'll disappear. So I find that very neat. So let's say you're in PvP and you have a whole bunch of people ganging up on you and there's a bunch of dead bodies. You can use Dead Again and it will cause those little explosions. I'm just showing off some of the pyromancy. Both of these are pyromancy weapons. I like to use double pyromancy because in my left hand I like to use curved swords and attack for the combo. for that combo. And plus, what people didn't notice is, well, they probably did. It's just when you use a parting flame and the right hand instead of the left hand, it kind of lets you not make the mistake of doing the little prayer thing that you pray to the ground in. See, I can't even do it because it activates the fist animation. But if I were to switch it to right here, it would activate that little and yeah, I hate doing that in PvP. That's annoying. You're just attacking out of nowhere and then you just start fucking praying. Like, what the fuck? So I use it in the right hand. That way that doesn't happen. And then you have this. Simple shit. Now the reason why I have this little setup right here is because that's the highest amount of, from what I know of. I mean, it can go higher, just that you got both pyromancy rings and you've got the fire clutch ring, which does increase fire damage and it does help out with that. It helps out with the demon scar and it helps out with the parting flame. So you're going to be doing a significant amount of damage, and I think it also helps out with what's that? Just the spell buff. Which spell buff for that is 182, and that's 197. The highest spell buff I have is from obviously the regular pyromancy flame, which is 210. But it's just a little bit. It's just a little bit above the normal pyromancy. Now with this one, you're gonna get the same thing. You're gonna get the little fist, and then you're gonna get the actual pyromancy that comes out. I think, I'm not sure if that came out faster than the other one, or if they're just both the same. Yeah, they're both the same. This one is one of my favorites since it it's pretty much a guaranteed just wombo combo. Yeah, as you can tell, this is my favorite. This is my favorite build to use, the Pyromancer, because it just does so much damage. Easily, I believe that sorcery is the strongest out of both Pyromancer and Miracles, and here's why. The sorceries have more items that buff them up, whereas the Miracles only have like 2 rings and a chime that buffs, which is the Yorshka's chime. And the Pyromancers only have like, I think, only have 3 things that buff it, and the sorceries have 4. So you want to get something like that. And you want to do that. Oh yeah. And I know my damage could be higher if I used the Court Sorcerer Staff. Like, I know them, I already know the meta, so. I'm just using things that normally aren't used in the meta. I call it the sub-meta. Reason why I have this on is because it it gives a buff to sorceries. Everything I have on is a buff to sorceries. Like, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 items that buff your sorceries. So yeah, that's why sorcery is the strongest of all the magic classes, because you have so much damage. That put me And that put this little straight sword right here at 410. And I guarantee you that if I use Oath of Sunlight, along to buff that sorcery, it's ridiculous. Yeah, you see that? It's overwhelmingly powerful. Look at that. Normally that kills people in PvP. Like, the bad part about it is that, you know, I can raise it higher with the miracles stacked on top of it. Meaning, I mean, it's not really necessary to keep going, but that's if you want to. Me, I'd rather not keep going. Okay, this is another weapon that is just sickening. And see, look, the straight sword has caught up to the amount of damage the Frida's Great Scythe does. So that's... I really don't know what to say about that. See, that's just as harmful. If I had a +5 immolation tinder, well, I did have one. It was wrecking shit. So I'm just gonna use the Sunless Talisman, and then I'm going to buff. I was pretty sure I had Sacred Oath. I don't know why I don't have it. That's okay. Wait, I thought Oath of Sunlight stacked on Deep Protection. Oh, it does. And look at that. That's ridiculous. Instead of having the Sage's Ring on, oh yeah, I didn't even mention that. Oh yeah. If I stack Lord Swords Ring, I have to use Oath of Sunlight, then the yeah, you see that? That's fucking stupid ridiculous. See the buff wall. Yep, 1,191 damage. I think I could go higher if I switch this around, and instead of using the clutch ring, just use the, where the fuck is it? Oh, if I had the Scholar's ring, which I don't know why I don't have it, I could just add the extra 5 in, and that would boost it even more. But yeah. So if you do all that stuff, and if you have a court sorcerer staff or whatever, and you use your miracles to boost your sorceries, they will be even more powerful than they were before, because when you do use this, it does stack on top of your sorcery. Like right there, it shows a clear definition, 515, and that adds on top of your straight swords. Not to mention, if I do this, which I have in a video, it's called the Crystal Sunlight Soldier. I already have that. What the fuck? Oh well, fuck it. I can do this buff. Pretty. Of course, I should have put it up on the other hand. I don't know why I didn't do that. Oh, I forgot. Damn it. I forgot. Oath Deep Protection stacks on top of Oath of Sunlight. So I have to hit Oath of Sunlight first. And then Deep Protection. And yeah, now I have 500 and something damage on both weapons. With this one, 544, 541, give or take. Like I said, I have future videos coming to show some of this. A lot of these things I'm doing right now, I already have videos of me doing it on my channel. Like this build, I already have one of me doing it. It's called the Crystal Sunlight Soldier. And I have another build that has something very similar to it with the Immolation Dark Dragon Slayer build. And then I have the build that I use with the Onyx Blade, which is my meta build, which is pretty much what most people probably like anyway. This, if it was upgraded some more, would do a ridiculous amount of damage because it's a magic weapon. It's a magic curved sword. So all in all, that's pretty much my playstyle with this account. Just pyromancies and magic. Because I center my build around magic because I realized that for me it does more damage than your regular weapons, even though it's splitting damage. I know quality builds will always have that niche in the community in Dark Souls, because that's just how quality builds are. I mean, when you have 40/40 and cap on your dex and your strength, you're pretty much squared away already. You don't really have to. This is just for people who like to be a mage. I pretty much don't really have to explain much about these spells. They're dark sorceries. Which I do recommend dark sorceries simply because they're very potent against people that don't know what to do against them. They're not as fast as sorceries, but there goes my buff. Okay, I think that's enough for this video for now. I'll have another build like video coming up soon, mainly for meta builds, and for people who just want to see things that are used differently than normal, because I just believe in, you know, playing how you play with your play style to the best of your own ability. That's pretty much it. Well, that's all for now, and I will be signing off, and mostly I'll be doing videos on Tuesdays, because that's my day where I'm most free, instead of today, which wouldn't have been a good time anyway, but who cares. So that's a wrap, and I'll be coming to you with more videos in the future. Hopefully they're not as cancerous as this one, because they're all cancer. Alrighty.